Looking to confirm phone number 208-5444, just so we can assign a name to that number.
Justin Wilcox.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Also looking to confirm phone number 727-4788.
Yes, that's correct.
And who's this?
This is Emilio Sebastian. I'm the pastor at Jubilee Christian Church doing the invocation this evening.
Thank you. We'll put you on mute for now, and then we'll let you know we'll unmute you once we get started and we get to your portion of the agenda. So thank you for being here.
Okay.
Also looking to confirm phone number 734-4199.
This is Corinda Crosdale.
Oh, thanks, Corinda. Did you do you have the admin number? This one was just for legislators. Dawn, I think Dawn sent it out.
Should I use password 701559? Or I can go back out and call back in. Let me see if yeah, I just have the one meeting ID.
All right, I can forward you an email right now that has the correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, everyone, I think we're going to go ahead and get started here in just a minute. Just a reminder, if anyone's watching, this on YouTube, and that's also on the call. If you could please mute the audio.
Ready?
The May 12th, 2020 meeting of the Monroe County Legislature will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Alcoffer.
Here.
Mr. Ansello.
Here.
Ms. Barnhart.
Here.
Roth.
Here.
Mr. Baines.
Here.
Ms. Boyce.
Here.
Mr. Brew.
Here.
President Carbone. Here. Mr. Delahanty.
Here.
Mr. Florio.
Here.
Mr. Dondorfer.
Here.
Mr. Felder. Mr. Felder.
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Flagler Mitchell.
Here.
Ms. Hess.
Here.
Mr. Hebert.
Here.
Mr. Keofet Lacey.
Here.
Ms. Lamar.
Here.
Mr. Lee.
Here.
Mr. Mafucci.
Here.
Mr. Marionetti.
Here.
Mr. Morelli.
Here.
Ms. Roman.
Here.
Ms. Smith.
Here.
Ms. Taylor.
Here.
Mr. Terp.
Here.
Mr. Wilcox.
Here.
Mr. Wilt.
Here.
Mr. Udelson. Mr. Zale.
Here.
All members present except for Mr. Udelson.
We will need to suspend the rules of the legislature for the purpose of prohibiting public in-purpose attendance in accordance with Executive Order 202.1 issued by Governor Andrew M. Cuomo on March 12, 2020. You have a motion before you which is moved by Legislator Brew and seconded by Legislator Zale. This is a non-debatable motion. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. I'd like to welcome and introduce Pastor Emilio Sebastian of Jubilee Christian Church, who has been invited by Legislator Smith to lead us in a moment of prayer. Pastor?
Yes. Thank you. I'd like to just thank all of you for the good work that you're doing and for allowing me the privilege of opening your session tonight. Please feel free to join me as you wish. Almighty God, we welcome your presence to be with each of us tonight as we prepare our hearts to go to work on behalf of your people. We invite you to lead, guide, and orchestrate this meeting. Father, according to your word, I pray for and thank you for this group of leaders that you have brought together tonight. Leaders that you have chosen, men and women of integrity, to serve and represent your people in their respective districts all across this great county. I pray that you lead them as they lead us. I pray that you give them spiritual wisdom and guidance that comes from you. Give them the knowledge of your will, and may their understanding be enlightened, allowing you to show them the best course of action, so that the decisions they make and implement are made with the best interest of the people they govern in mind. Grant them clear vision and direction to set the course for our communities. Bless these leaders with divinely inspired judgment and the ability to make wise choices, even in the face of opposition, so that they may legislate effectively. Give them the strength and the courage required to face every challenge head on and to stand for what is right as they make the hard decisions that honor you. I ask for a spirit of unity and community to prevail in their meeting, that they may act in one accord. Help each one to put aside any political differences and biases that they might have, so that they would not be distracted from their purpose, to legislate on behalf of the people they represent, and to make our county and its communities a better and safer place for all of us to live and enjoy life. And lastly, may we this evening remember your great love for us, that there is no greater demonstration of love than to lay down one's life for another. Almighty God, let your grace and favor rest upon this assembly, and may your blessings rest on each of them and their families as they go about doing your business. I ask all of these things in the mighty, powerful name of Jesus. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. We'll be mailing you a certificate on behalf of the legislature for your participation. Thank you again.
Thank you for your invitation. I will be dropping off. Thank you.
Okay. Please stand as Legislator Mike Sale will now lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I ask you to remain standing. Without objection, we will take agenda item number 38 out of the regular agenda order. Agenda item 38 is moved by Legislator Brew and seconded by Legislator Felder. Will the clerk please read the resolution in memoriam for Thomas D. Cook, Chairman of the Monroe County Conservative Party?
Expressing regret of the Monroe County Legislature on the recent passing of Thomas D. Cook, Chairman of the Monroe County Conservative Party. Be it resolved that the Monroe County Legislature hereby expresses its deepest sympathy at the recent passing of Thomas D. Cook, Chairman of the Monroe County Conservative Party. And whereas Chairman Cook passed away on Easter Sunday, April 12, 2020, at the age of 73. And whereas Chairman Cook graduated from Pittsford Sutherland High School in 1964, he attended Denison College, graduating in 1968, and graduated from Syracuse University Law School in 1973. Prior to attending law school, he proudly served our nation as part of the United States Marine Corps in Vietnam. And whereas Chairman Cook was admitted to practice law in New York State in 1974 and went on to have a stellar legal career. He and his wife Maria owned Barristers, a downtown restaurant popular among attorneys. In 1979, he was elected to lead the Conservative Party and continued to do so for 41 years until the time of his death. And whereas over the past several decades, Chairman Cook was a local political icon in our region, pushing candidates of a variety of political parties to victory. He had an incredible impact on local government and grew the Monroe County Conservative Party to be the most successful in New York State. He supported many judicial campaigns and led a concerted effort to help women candidates get elected. And whereas Chairman Cook is predeceased by his parents, Garrett and Betty Cook, and sister, Betty Fulmer. He is survived by his wife, Maria, niece, Dawn, and husband, Tom, and nephew, Daniel, and wife, Chris, great nieces, Carrie and Lily, and great-nephews Matt and Patrick, as well as many dear friends. And whereas Tom will be remembered for his fierce loyalty and friendship, he was hardworking and well-respected by all he encountered, and he will be missed by all who knew and loved him. Be it further resolved that the clerk of the legislature is hereby directed to forward a copy of this resolution to the bereaved family. This resolution was adopted unanimously, with each legislator rising in his or her place for a moment of silence.
Your copies of the journals of Day 7, April 14th, 2020, and Day 8, April 29th, 2020, are available through Novus Agenda. Without exception, the journal will stand approved as submitted. This meeting has been closed to the public, and all legislators are participating via teleconference in accordance with the Executive Order 202.1. In keeping with the legislature's tradition of openness, the meeting is now being live streamed on YouTube through the legislature's official channel. Everyone participating via video or teleconference will please mute their devices except to obtain the floor or cast a vote. If seeking to obtain the floor, please simply state your name and wait for me to call on you before proceeding with your question or statement. The clerk will read the full title of each resolution and referral to avoid any confusion as to which item is before the legislature. All votes will be held via voice vote unless a roll call is requested. Legislators, please join me in congratulating Legislator Eversha Roman on the birth of her son, Elias Hector Pabon, born on May 9th. Congratulations.
That's great.
Legislators, the referrals submitted to the legislature for the next committee cycle are available on Novus Agenda as well as online. A note that committees are scheduled for next week due to Memorial Day. We may still be meeting remotely, barring a decision from the governor to not extend the executive order that permits meeting via telephone or video conference. If meeting remotely, we will likely once again meet as a committee of the whole, which would be convened through a special meeting. Please stay tuned for updates. Thank you. There are no proclamations scheduled this evening. We will now recess for the purpose of holding a public hearing. Those wishing to address the legislature for the scheduled public hearing were instructed to call a conference line. That line has been patched into this meeting. 6:15, we're good. Authorizing acquisition of property located at 676 Behan Road in the town of Chile, County of Monroe, State of New York, and amending Resolution 437 of 1989 to amend lease and operating agreement with Monroe County Airport Authority.
Is there anyone present on the phone wishing to speak on this matter?
There being none, I declare this public hearing closed. I will now reconvene the May 12, 2020 meeting of the Monroe County Legislature. There are no formal committee meeting reports scheduled for this evening. We will now hold a public forum. Mr. Clerk.
We had 3 individuals submit written comment to be read as part of today's public forum. First comment comes from Ebony Burgess. Here are a few concerns that employees had regarding hazard pay. The county is using this criteria, quote, have continuous or sustained contact with public, clients, patients, etc. This was chosen by HR. The county ledge voted on and approved this criteria of hazard pay. Quote, county employees who are at a greater risk of exposure to COVID-19 or who have been working extended hours in addition to their scheduled work hours in responding to the COVID-19 crisis. Per the CARES Act Title V guidelines issued by the Treasury Department, it was for employees whose services are substantially dedicated to mitigating or responding to the COVID-19 public health emergency. The administration agreed to the legislation at the last meeting to reevaluate who was included based on the actual guidelines. Employees who come into work are at a greater risk and are definitely responding to the COVID-19 through their daily work to provide food, shelter, and health benefits to the community. The CARES Act was intended to be broadly used, but our administration narrowed it drastically. Reading through the list of the approved positions for hazard pay, it is very clear some of them do not have their continuous or sustained contact with the public, clients, patients, so that can't be the only basis for county employees to be approved as we were told. I would like the following questions answered. Define working extended hours due to COVID-19. Define greater risk of exposure. Does that include entering a work site that you share with the public? Has the county looked at how much it would cost if they gave employees working in the building hazard pay? What is roughly that cost? Is it doable? What will happen if the money is not spent? Can the money be spent for salaries for employees to prevent furloughs? Wayne County has already started furloughs. Is this something that is possible for the county? Will early retirement packages be an option? Thank you. Our next comment comes from Christina Chrisman. My name is Christina Chrisman, and I work in the Monroe County Department of Human Services, and I am also the Political Action Chair of the Federation of Social Workers. Many of our members who work in the Department of Human Services have not been included on the hazard pay schedules, including the additions you will be voting on tonight. At the April 29th meeting, the administration agreed to reevaluate the guidelines used in creating the schedules to potentially include more employees. As of Friday, I was informed that the criteria for hazard pay as defined by HR and our department head continues to be, quote, have continuous or sustained contact with the public, clients, patients, etc. The matter of urgency approved by this legislature defines the criteria as, quote, county employees who are at a greater risk of exposure to COVID-19 or who have been working extended hours in addition to their scheduled hours in responding to the COVID-19 crisis, close quote. As you can see, there is still some discrepancy about who should be included based on the actual legislation that was passed. There are many of us who worry that this policy was not as broadly applied as the original intention of the CARES Act. The potential to include more employees definitely exists, and since it was clearly demonstrated at the last meeting that the financial capacity is there, we wonder why so many are being left out. Our members continue to come to work and determine eligibility and issue SNAP, Medicaid, temporary assistance, child care, HEAP, and child support benefits, and provide child and family services that are necessary for the community, especially during this crisis. Some are working overtime handling the influx of applications received due to COVID-19, and were not included in hazard pay. We leave our families every day and report to work at county buildings where we are exposed to COVID-19. For example, we handle documents coming from infected nursing homes, we ride public transportation to work, we use the same entryways, we walk the same hallways, and we use the same elevators as the public, clients, patients, among many other exposure factors. We have coworkers who have tested positive and many coworkers who have been quarantined. We ask that the workers who have been working overtime are added to the list, and we urge you to include working from the office buildings and definition of being at a greater risk of exposure to COVID-19. Thank you. We have our next comment is from Heidi Andrisha. I would like to address the release of the newly added workers to the list of people receiving hazard pay, and the fact that none of the Department of Social Services Medicaid unit was added to this list. The definition for hazard pay as defined by HR and our department head is, quote, have continuous or sustained contact with the public, clients, patients, etc., close quote. The matters of urgency approved by this legislature defines the criteria as, quote, county employees who are at greater risk of exposure to COVID-19 or who have been working extended hours in addition to their scheduled work hours in responding to the COVID-19 crisis, close quote. We, the Medicaid workers, were not included and told that we are not considered part of the qualifications. We in the Medicaid unit specifically are processing twice as many applications as our average because of this pandemic and these clients needing help. These are patients that are in need of medical assistance and Medicaid coverage because of the COVID pandemic. If a patient is going into the hospital or into a nursing home, we are processing their applications. However, no one from the Medicaid unit was added to the list for approvals. The Medicaid workers have been working extended hours to work Monday through Saturday from 6:45 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. in order to meet social distancing requirements. We as Medicaid workers are exposed all day, every single day, to applications and documents coming to us from the hospitals and nursing homes for people applying for Medicaid coverage. Both the hospitals and nursing homes, which have the most significant number of COVID cases. These applications are completed and signed at the hospitals and nursing home and sometimes by those that are confirmed cases of COVID. That means we are exposed to the virus on the documents every day, and we are processing applications for patients that need to be treated. Yet we are said not to qualify under the above definition. I would like to implore all the members of the county legislature to please review and vote to add the Medicaid unit workers to the list of people that will receive hazard pay. Thank you for all your help. especially Legislator Boyce, for fighting for us. And that concludes the public forum.
Very good. We'll now proceed with the consideration of local laws. Will the clerk please read the first item on the agenda?
Item number 1, referral 20-0126, enacting a local law entitled American Sign Language Interpreters at all Monroe County government press conferences held during emergency situations.
So moved.
Move it. Second.
Moved by Legislator Taylor, seconded by Legislators Boyce and Delahanty. This is for introductory purposes only. Next item.
Item number 2, referral 20-0126, providing that local law entitled enacting a local law titled American Sign Language Interpreters at all Monroe County government press conferences held during emergency situations be tabled.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second, Mr. President.
Moved by Legislator Taylor, seconded by Legislators Boyce and Delahanty. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 3, referral 20-0126, fixing a public hearing on local law entitled enacting a local law entitled American Sign Language Interpreters at all Monroe County government press conferences held during emergency situations.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by Legislator Taylor, seconded by Legislators Boyce and Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 4, referral 20-0142, enacting a local law amending the Monroe County Charter to change the date for filling vacancies in the Monroe County Legislature.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by Legislator Taylor, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. This is for introductory purposes. Next item.
Item number 5, referral 20-0142, providing that local law entitled enacting a local law amending the Monroe County Charter to change the date for filling vacancies in the Monroe County Legislature be tabled.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by Legislator Taylor, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next item, number 6.
Item number 6, referral 20-0142, fixing a public hearing on local law entitled enacting local law amending the Monroe County Charter to change the date for filling vacancies in the Monroe County Legislature.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by Legislator Taylor, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next item. We will now proceed with consideration of motions, resolutions, and notices. Will the clerk read the next item on the agenda, please?
Item number 7, referral 20-0113, providing that resolution intro number 164, 2020, entitled authorizing acquisition of property located at 676 Behan Road in the town of Chilai, County of Monroe, State of New York, and amending resolution 437 of 1989 to amend lease and operating agreement with Monroe County Airport Authority be lifted from the table.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by Legislator Dondorfer, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 8, referral 20-0113, providing that resolution intro number 164 of 2020 entitled authorizing acquisition of property located at 676 Behan Road in the town of Chilai, County of Monroe, State of New York, and amending resolution 437 of 1989 to amend lease and operating agreement with Monroe County Airport Authority be adopted.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by Legislator Dondorfer, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item, number 9.
Item number 9, referral 20-0125, confirming appointment of Commissioner of Department of Human and Health Services.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Hebert, seconded by legislator Zale. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Number 10.
Item number 10, referral 20-0127, confirming appointment of Director of Public Safety.
Move, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Boyce, seconded by legislator Turp. Is there any discussion?
Legislator Morelli.
Go ahead, legislator Morelli.
Mr. President, I know at our last meeting, I gave my comments just on how great I thought Chief Tantillo was. But I will say, Mr. President, when I was handing out masks this past weekend at the town of Arundecoit Town Hall, it was good to see that the chief had came back. And so I just want to take this opportunity to thank him for all he's done for our community and wish him the best of luck. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, legislator Morelli. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Congratulations, Chief. Item carries. Next item.
Item number 11, referral 20-0143, accepting grant from New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services for the Live Scan Equipment Grant Program.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Boyce, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? None, all in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Number 12.
Item number 12, referral 20-0144, accepting a grant from the United States Department of Justice, United States Marshals Service, Western District of New York for the United States Marshal Service, New York, New Jersey Regional Fugitive Task Force, Rochester Division.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
By legislator Boyce, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next item, 13.
Item number 13, referral 20-0145, authorizing contract with the University of Rochester for continuing development and sustainment of county's medical countermeasure program.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
By legislator Boyce, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion?
Yes, Mr. President, this is Linda Hasman.
Go ahead, legislator Hasman.
To declare an interest, I currently work for the University of Rochester at the Medical Center.
Okay, thank you.
This is
Any
legislator
further
Barrow.
discussion? Legislator Baroff.
Thank you very
Did I
much.
say it right?
No, Barroth.
We're practicing that ahead of the meeting, and we still did it wrong.
Sorry.
I might have to go back to Baroff, okay?
And no, I'm good with everything. I really am.
Okay, good.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead, legislator Baroff.
So through the president to the administration, just a quick question. Have we confirmed with the U of R that this contract will be unaffected by the furloughs that are now commencing there?
Through you, Mr. President, this is Mike Sayers from the Health Department. And I have confirmed to the Center for Community Health of U of R that this will not be currently impacted by the furlough.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Any further discussion?
Yes, President, I just have to declare my interest. My wife is a nurse at the University of Rochester.
Thank you, legislator. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 14, referral 20-0146, authorizing creation of one new position in the Public Defender's Office, part of the Year 2 funding of statewide expansion of the Hurl Herring Project Grant.
Move it, Mr.
Moved by
President.
legislator Boyce,
Second.
seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President. Legislator.
Yes, legislator Boyce.
Yes, I just wanted to ask Public Defender Danaher with regards to this. Once this position is created, will this new person that is going to fill this position be working with the county executive's office and their appointee, the diversity officer?
Through you, Mr. President, Tim Donner in the Public Defender's Office. Absolutely. I've discussed that with the person who will be taking this position, and she's looking forward to working with the county executive or his designee on expanding diversity in the Public Defender's Office.
Thank you, Mr. Danaher.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 15, referral 20-0147, authorizing undertaking for New York State Department of Transportation to allow future county utility and non-utility work in state rights of way.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Wilt, seconded by legislator Smith. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 16, referral 20-0148, accepting offer and payment for appropriation by State of New York of property at 1870 Mount Hope Avenue in City of Rochester for Mount Hope Avenue Improvement Project.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Wilt, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 17, referral 20-0149, accepting grant from New York State Office of Mental Health for the PFC Dwyer Veteran Peer-to-Peer Support Program and authorizing contract with CompTIA Inc.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Hebert, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 18, referral 20-0150, accepting grant from Health Research Inc. for the Expanded Partner Services Initiative.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
By legislator Hebert, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next item, please.
Item number 19, referral 20-0151, authorizing intermunicipal agreement with the Spencerport School District for purchase of fuel for vehicles of Monroe County Sheriff's Office.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second, Mr.
Moved by
President.
legislator Alcoffer,
Second.
seconded by legislators Boyce and Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 20, referral 20-0153, accepting Regional Council Award grant funding from New York State Urban Development Corporation, doing business as Empire State Development for Frontier Field Improvements Project.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Dondorfer, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 21, referral 20-0154, authorizing lease agreement with Monroe County Soil and Water Conservation District and authorizing contract for stormwater management consulting services.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Dondorfer, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item, 22.
Item number 22, referral 20-0155, authorizing contracts with C.J. Brown Energy and Engineering, PC, and M&E Engineering, PC, for energy term services.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Dondorfer, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 23, referral 20-0156, authorizing contracts with Steve General Contractor, Inc., Crosby Brownlee, Inc., Michael A. Fiorello Plumbing and Heating, Inc., and Hewitt Young Electric, LLC, for Hall of Justice Courtroom Improvements Project.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Dondorfer, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. Next item.
Item number 24, referral 20-0157, authorizing contract with Bergman Associates Architects, Engineers, Landscape Architects, and Surveyors, DPC, for professional design services for Monroe Community College Property Preservation Phase 3 project.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Dondorfer, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. 25.
Item number 25, referral 20-0158, authorizing contracts with DeMarco Constructors, LLC, for construction management services, D. Pasquale Construction Corporation, Bell Mechanical Contractor, Inc., Michael A. Fiorello Plumbing and Heating, Inc., and Kaplan Schmidt Electric, Inc., for the Monroe County Public Safety Building second and third floor renovation project.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Dondorfer, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion?
Yes, legislator Boyce?
Go ahead, legislator Boyce.
Yes, a question to the administration through the president. I have a question with regards to, due to the COVID-19, would any modifications made to the renovation project at this time?
Through you, Mr. President, this is Mike Garland from Environmental Services. I'm not aware of any changes or modifications to the design to meet the sheriff's requirements based on the construction moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Garland.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 26, referral 20-0159, accepting grant from New York State Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services for the fiscal year cybersecurity 2020 cybersecurity targeted grant program.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Delahanty, seconded by legislator Hebert. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 27, referral 20-0160, authorizing sale of county-owned tax foreclosure property located at 208 Garfield Street in the town/village of East Rochester.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second, sir.
Moved by legislator Delahanty, seconded by legislator Hebert. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 28, referral 20-0161, authorizing sale of county-owned tax foreclosure property located at 62 Seaview Avenue in the town of Arundequoit.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Delahanty, seconded by legislator Hebert. This is for introductory purposes only. Next item.
Item number 29, referral 20-0161, providing that resolution entitled authorizing sale of county-owned tax foreclosure property located at 62 Seaview Avenue in the town of Arundecoit be amended.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Delahanty, seconded by legislator Hebert. This is to correct a mistake related to the tax account number. Thank you, legislator Hebert, for bringing this to the legislature's attention. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 30, referral 20-0161, providing that resolution entitled authorizing sale of county-owned tax foreclosure property located at 62 Seaview Avenue in the town of Arundecoit be adopted as amended.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Delahanty, seconded by legislator Hebert. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 31, referral 20-0162, amending resolution 397 of 2019 to amend and increase contract with Siemens Industry, Inc. for operation and maintenance of Monroe County's Iola cogeneration facility.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Dondorfer, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion?
Legislator Barworth.
Okay, legislator.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to explain my vote. As we discussed in the Committee of the Whole, this contract was signed back in 2019. And at the time, we as a county knew that this generator was going to need to be serviced for a significant amount of money. And the significant amount of money was $500,000 or so. And I just found that to be an appalling way to do business and to budget out expenses. I recognize that we're in this position now that we do need to have this functioning. We do need to have it continue. It's reaching the end of its life cycle. I just hope that the county will move forward with a different process in terms of engaging us in terms of how we will fund projects and put it up front so we know what we're voting on at the time, as opposed to when this was originally introduced in 2019. But I will be voting in the affirmative, but I'm just disheartened that we still have some carryover stuff we have to deal with. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 32, referral 20-0166, directing clerk of the legislature to present referral 20-0028 entitled enacting a local law to amend local law number 5 of 1997 entitled authorizing lease to DePaul Adult Care Communities, Inc., intro number 42 of 2020 to the county executive in order to recommence notice period for public hearing to be held by the county executive.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Taylor, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item, 33, correct?
Item number 33, referral 20-0167, accepting grant from Federal Aviation Administration, Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act Airport Grants Program related to the operation and maintenance of Greater Rochester International Airport.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Dondorfer, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 34, referral 20-0171, amending resolution 135 of 2020, authorizing payment of hazard pay to Monroe County employees at greater risk of exposure or working extended hours due to the county's response to COVID-19 and to amend schedules A and B.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Delahanty, seconded by legislator Hebert. At this time, I'd like to thank the county attorney for his response to my letter requesting information as to whether granting hazard pay to employees whose only reason for eligibility is working extended hours, is within guidance provided by the United States Treasury Department. For those legislators not aware, there was an updated guidance issued by the U.S. Treasury Department on May 4th that stated the following definition for hazard pay. Hazard pay means additional pay for performing hazardous duty or work involving physical hardship in each case that is related to COVID-19. Mr. County Attorney, can you please provide the legislature with an overview of the written opinion you provided to us?
Yes, President Carbone, this is County Attorney John Bringawat. I'd be happy to do that. As you referenced, the frequently asked questions document that was issued on May 4th does define hazard pay. There are also a number of other ways in which payroll expenses qualify, the general standard being anyone, payroll expenses for public safety, public health, human care, human services, and similar employees whose services are substantially dedicated to mitigating or responding to the COVID crisis are eligible for reimbursement under the CARES Act. That's actually quoting from the guidance that was issued April 22nd. On the FAQs clarified that making clear that, quote, broad classes of employees are eligible for reimbursement. Again, listing similar categories: public safety, public health, human services, where those services are substantially dedicated to mitigating or responding to the COVID-19 health emergency. The FAQs actually go further and say that local governments may in fact presume that payroll costs for public health or public safety employees are classified as substantially dedicated to mitigating or responding to the COVID-19 health emergency. So based on that guidance, it is my conclusion that all the employees who have been identified in resolution number 135 who are either at greater risk of exposure to COVID or are working extended hours due to the county's response to the COVID-19 crisis are eligible for reimbursement under the guidance that we have to date for the CARES Act.
Thank you, Counselor. Any further discussion on this referral?
Yes, Mr. President, Legislator Brew.
Legislator Brew, got the floor.
If I may, I have a statement and a couple of questions. Mr. President, I note that the funds being used for hazard pay are the same CARES Act funds that we accepted at our last meeting, approximately $129 million allocated to Fund Center 12090700100 state of emergency. I did write the administration last week asking for a listing of all expenses and commitments charged to that Fund Center, and I certainly look forward to the response. But in the interim, I'd like to ask the administration one specific question related to the expenses associated with the Fund Center. When we accepted the $129 million in CARES Act funding, the administration mentioned that some funds had already been spent specifically on stockpiling some PPE. I assume this was the PPE distributed across the county this past Saturday and once again tomorrow. However, I noted this legislature never approved any contracts related to the procurement of PPE, nor were any contracts approved with the additional authority given to the county executive by the legislature, filed with the legislature. So through you, Mr. President, and my question is, how much has the county spent on PPE and under what procurement authority were the purchases made?
Legislator Brew, I'm very sorry. We have a little technical issue. We're going to take a 5-minute recess, and then we'll come right back. Oh, yeah. We don't need the full 5 minutes. Good news. Legislator Brew, administration, do you need that question repeated? Or are you good with it?
No, Mr. President, we're set with that. So through you, in response to Legislator Brew's question, we are in the process of compiling the data that you've requested. I will answer the first part of your question and defer to the county attorney for the second part. My understanding is we've spent, and again, I don't have the exact number in front of me right now, but we spent somewhere in the neighborhood of probably about $3.5 million for these masks. We have a total of about 8 million that have been ordered, and they're in different states of delivery. We have received a large number, a majority of the masks. So that's why I can't give you a precise figure at this point. In terms of the procurement policy, I'll turn it over to County Attorney Bringwat.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. President, the masks were procured pursuant to the county's emergency procurement policy, which is part of the county's broader procurement policy, which is consistent and basically follows the mandates of General Municipal Law 103. The resolution that granted additional emergency procurement authority to the county executive applies primarily to professional services because that was a gap we identified in the county executive's emergency procurement policy authority, whereas procuring goods like, for example, PPE is already covered under the law, under the emergency exception under General Municipal Law 103.
Okay, thank you. I guess I hadn't stitched that together, but I guess I will take that for what it's worth. Thank you. And I did, through the president, I had a follow-up question, and that was based upon the public comment that we heard prior to the start of our meeting, and I've also heard from a number of my constituents, and I know my other legislative colleagues have as well. And those are from a number of county employees who do feel that they are eligible for hazard pay, and they have not been included. So my question to the president, to the administration is there a way that an employee can appeal the county's decision not to include that employee as a recipient of hazard pay?
This is Corinda Crosdale, Deputy County Executive for Health and Human Services, to the President. Yes, I myself have had several conversations with managers and the union, and I have made it known that they can contact their supervisor and or director, as well as Commissioner Wright, if they feel that they were unduly left out of hazard pay. The list reflects those conversations that we've had. As determinations are made that individuals should be added to that hazard pay list, they are being added.
Okay, and thank you. And I'm sorry, another follow-up question. So would this be applied to all different departments of the county, not just Health and Human Services?
Through the President, yes.
Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, Legislator Flagler.
Legislator Flagler Mitchell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Just through you to the administration, just a real quick question. We heard from some of our constituents as well as our Federation of Social Worker Union members. And one thing that we heard that we need to probably try to look at again is that the Medicaid unit don't have nobody who can receive hazard pay. Is there a reason why hazard pay was not included for the Medicaid unit? Through you, Mr. President, to the administration.
Through the president, they have no direct contact with any of the constituents that they serve. As was mentioned in the testimony, the written testimony, the vast majority of the residents that they serve are residing in skilled nursing facilities. I defer to Dr. Mendoza, but I do not believe that the COVID virus lives on paper. That's sent in mostly via mail for determination of Medicaid benefits. I believe that the virus is contracted through direct contact with other people through droplets from coughing, sneezing, and talking within 6 feet of one another.
Thank you. And through you,
Yes, this is
no, I'm not done yet. Thank you. Through you, Mr. President, to the administration, there is no face-to-face visits at all.
Through the president, that is correct.
Okay.
and this is Dr. Mendoza. I just want to confirm that mail is safe.
Go ahead, Dr. Mendoza. What'd you say? Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, lost them again.
I think we lost him.
Dr. Mendoza, could you repeat your answer to that question, please?
I think he said mail is safe.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
And through you, Mr. President, to the administration, will they be in contact with any of the other units that are out on the field who are receiving hazard pay?
Through the president, only with coming into the building and exiting the building, everyone is screened as per CDC and public health guidance, and temperatures are taken.
Thank you, Corinda. And just a last question to you, Mr. President, to the administration. Does that help us to determine if a person is asymptomatic and may not have a temperature?
Through the president, I defer to Dr. Mendoza, but I believe that that's done through the swabbing test.
Yeah, this is Dr. Mendoza. To the president, we do the screening at the door to assess for risk, but we cannot diagnose COVID without a test swab. So determining that somebody's afebrile is adequate for purposes of entry into the building.
Okay.
Dr. Mendoza, are you familiar with? Dr. Mendoza, are you familiar if the virus can survive on paper, and if it can, for how long?
Through you, Mr. President, latest studies show that the virus can live on the paper for probably about a day. So assuming the usual time for snail mail, our belief is that the virus will not live long enough to make it through mailing a letter.
Okay, any other, Legislator Mitchell? Okay, Legislator DeFlorio, you have the floor.
Yes, through the president to the administration, a couple of points. The Monroe County Attorney's own words indicated that hazard pay was indicated for individuals at increased risk of exposure to COVID. And if the individuals are working at 111, there's hundreds of employees in that building, it's my understanding. There is potential for the public to come into that building. And although they're being screened for a temperature, there's no guarantee that those individuals are not carrying or are not sick in any way. Yet we are asking our employees to walk through a single entrance with everyone. They're utilizing shared bathrooms, shared elevators. I'm just trying to understand how all of that is not increasing their exposure.
Has given the authority for the vast majority of our interviews to be done virtually or via phone. So the number of clients coming into the building have diminished greatly. There is a separate entrance for clients and employees. In those employees, we can't shut down social services. So for those clients who insist on a face-to-face interview, all of those employees who are doing those face-to-face interviews have been provided hazard pay, and most of that happens on the first floor. The vast majority of the offices are on the second floor and above, and our West Hall location has 10 floors, and our St. Paul office has 6 floors. So the clients are well distanced from any of the employees who are processing paperwork and don't have direct client contact. Another area where the state has not relaxed the regulations are on those 24-hour and 7-day assessments for our CPS workers. They are out in the field engaging with families that they don't have any previous way to screen. All of those employees are also receiving hazard pay. So the employees that you're potentially speaking about, their only contact are with their fellow employees. They should be maintaining a 6-foot distance, and everyone is masked when they enter the building while they're being screened. And when they exit the building is pretty much the only contact they have. We also have staggered scheduling so that we have a smaller number of employees in the office at one time. So even while in the workspace, they can maintain 6 feet of distance from each other.
So through you to the through the president to the administration, how often are elevator buttons, door handles, bathrooms that are again being utilized in shared spaces by multiple employees? And although they're fellow employees, there's no guarantee that those fellow employees have not been exposed somewhere along the way. So how often are those surfaces all being sanitized and sterilized?
Through the president, I spent about a week and a half sitting at our 111 Westfall Road location. And while I was in the office for probably about 10 hours, I would say that the cleaning staff came and cleaned doorknobs, light switches, maybe 5 or 6 times during my time in the office there. They rotate cleaning all of those hot spots on a regular and consistent basis. So those would be doorknobs, light switches, and elevator buttons. The risk, and I again defer to Dr. Mendoza, would probably be equivalent to going grocery shopping at Walmart, or maybe even less because we have less people in the building.
But through the president to the administration, it's your choice to go to Walmart. I've not been to Walmart since all of this started. These individuals have no choice but to come to work. So that's the difference. And through the president to the administration, one additional question. I know Dr. Mendoza indicated that mail, because it's coming through the mail system, would not necessarily be, the mail inside the envelope would not be exposed potentially to COVID, but what about the outside of the envelope and whoever's handling it in terms of mail employees and anyone in the mail room? And then my second question is, it's my understanding that for the Medicaid unit, papers are being delivered. I'm not sure what the carrier service is, but by lawyers' offices. So I'm not sure if those are coming in like a FedEx type of situation, or they're being dropped by local carriers. So again, my concern is that that individuals could potentially we are exposing them to papers that could potentially be exposed. It's also my understanding that some of these individuals are handling cash. So again, I just keep going back to the county attorney's words about increased risk of exposure, and how this all doesn't apply.
Through the president, is the question back to, does the virus live on surfaces such as mail that's coming through FedEx and cash? Because I would defer to Dr. Mendoza.
Yes, this is Dr. Mendoza through the president. Again, if what you're looking for is a 100% guarantee about how long the virus lives on anything, there's nobody in the country that can offer that kind of guidance. What I can tell you, though, is that the outer limit of time that we believe this virus lives on paper is on the order of a day, but as short as minutes. But I can't tell you that the person who's handling the mail has washed their hands within 15 minutes of handling the mail. That's just not the kind of reassurance that I can offer to you tonight.
So again, through the president to the administration, these individuals working in these conditions could be at increased risk, correct?
They could be at increased risk by going outside. I would offer that our building is probably safer than most other buildings because of the amount of screening that we undertake at entry. But, yeah.
I guess like you could extrapolate that then to wonder why some other people are included in the list of hazard pay. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Mr. President, Legislator Baines. Yes, Legislator Baines, you have the floor. Thank you. I believe we're voting on an amendment that adds dozens of employees to the hazard pay list. And because that's what we're voting on and what's on the table, through you, Mr. President, to the administration, would you review for this honorable body the process you used to change your mind about what people would be granted this hazard pay, and what was the criteria that you used in terms of data collection or information to add people? Because that will address the issue of whether future people who may be added in a future amendment. Through you to the administration, please.
I'm sorry, are you asking us through the president what our review process is?
Well, I'm asking you that, yes, and I'm also asking you, as part of your review process, what changed your mind about the dozens of employees that we're adding for hazard pay this evening?
Through the president, some of the information came from the Federation president and gave more detail around individual workers and the direct contact they were having with the public. And some of the employees were indeed working extended hours as defined by their manager, and they defined a time frame as to which that would continue. So as we gather more information, we can add people to that list.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. President, to the administration, just to follow up. What percentage of the employees who are receiving hazard pay are in bargaining units?
Mr. President, through you, legislator, if you could hold one moment, we can take a quick look at that. Give us one moment, please.
Thank you for looking for that. My point is that if they are in bargaining units, they have advocacy from their union leadership on this issue.
Through the president, this is Andrea Gazzetta. In terms of the numbers, the amount of people who are covered by a bargaining unit are 2,419, and those not in a bargaining unit are 228.
Thank you.
Mr. President, Legislator Flagler Mitchell.
Okay, legislator, you have the floor.
Just to you, to the administration, I just want to just make a comment that I would be comfortable that you add whoever on the hazard pay if they're mandated to come to work. If they're in the Medicaid unit, if they're cleaning the bathrooms, whoever. I mean, I would be comfortable with that because people walking around who is asymptomatic, I know we screening them, but if a person don't have a fever and they're working and others get exposed to it, what we don't want is our employees who come to work every day not to be covered. So for me, I would ask you to go back and look and see if there any way y'all can add the 200 and something employees onto the hazard pay as well. Thank you, Mr. President.
Legislator
Thank you.
Barnhart.
Yes, Legislator Barnhart.
Oh gosh, I'm sorry. My dog, of course, just starts immediately. Just real quick, to me, the work environment is just as important as whether someone's interacting with the public. So if you're in an office environment close to a lot of people, whether they're the public or your coworkers, that should matter. And Ms. Crossdale did address the social distancing a little bit in the office, but that would be important to me in making these kinds of decisions, if people can socially distance at work or not. It's not just about the interaction with the public. Thank you.
Legislator Mike Zale.
Go ahead, Legislator.
Thank you, Mr. President. I had asked a question about a week and a half ago when we had our special meeting about some sort of matrix that this was based on. And maybe this would be something that could clear up a lot of this. We had conversation about whether the virus can live on certain surfaces as a metric for what the risk is. We've heard from our county attorney as it relates to people that are at increased risk. And certainly there's some interpretation of that. So through you to the administration, I guess my question is, what are some best practices that were cited or that can be cited as a matrix or a system or something that was used that has some quantitative metrics for evaluating who is at the most risk and who is not?
Through you, Mr. President. You know, as we've stated, we've worked and we relied on our department heads to assess their operations and to help us come up with a policy. We have worked with the unions. We have tried to come up with a general criteria of exposure and increased risk. And of course, when you do something like that, there is an element of subjectiveness that's included in that, and sort of judgment calls that you make when you do this. You know, we went through this process, and you know, we've identified somewhere just over 2,600 employees who qualified for this. You know, we're willing to sit down and have conversations again with people who feel as though they should be included in this and with the unions in terms of specific job titles. But when we ventured road, really, as I said earlier, it was a situation where we wanted to offer hazard pay to people who we thought had an exceptional exposure or a different, I shouldn't say exceptional, a higher level of risk and a higher level of exposure with this. And again, it was a judgment call that our department heads made, and you know, we stand by that decision. But having said that, you know, is it possible that there are other people who may and weren't? That's something we would, you know, we'll be glad to revisit that issue and have continued conversations with the unions about that.
And I appreciate that, Mr. McCann, and certainly appreciate the transparency on that issue. There was something that was in that answer, of course, not trying to twist words, that I'd like to at least bring to the attention of maybe some further clarification. You had mentioned that the department heads have put a policy in place, and to me, and maybe the interpretation is different, But to me, that would be something that is stated or something that is clearly defined as far as what the threshold is for people that are qualified based on risk or time or anything like that versus those that are not. So if there is a policy in place, you mentioned something else about people who feel that they should be in there. And I think that that's a little bit dangerous, and maybe you can explain that a little bit different. If there's a policy based on metrics, based on best practices, maybe there's a hard number in a standard deviation that might be able to do that. But at the same time, you said people who feel that way. And so we're talking about quantitative metrics versus qualitative. And to me, that should be defined. So I guess again, have to ask, if there were no expert influence in this decision making, what was the process that people just got together and said this person, not this person, through the president to the administration?
Through you, Mr. President, of course that isn't what happened. We had instructions to our department heads, and there was a determination that people were at an increased risk. That increased risk included exposure and interactions with the public as a primary criteria of done. There were a number of people who were involved in DES that we felt were working with material that related to the coronavirus could be put them in a higher risk of being exposed to something. If you would be interested, we could have the department heads talk about each individual case. But again, we have 4,400 employees, and the fact that we're offering hazard pay to 2,600 employees, actually, I'm a little surprised that the conversation is that we aren't being inclusive enough with this. And when I said about people's feelings, I said that we would be happy to reconsider this and take another look. And again, people's feelings didn't mean that we would automatically grant them hazard pay, but just in terms of respecting our employees, treating them with fairness. Of course, we would have a conversation with them, which I think is a pretty significant and marked change from the way things were done in this administration in the past.
Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr.
Here.
McCann. I hold on one second. I appreciate that response, and certainly I am not raising any questions about the number of individuals added versus not. I'm literally looking for the metrics. With my background in finance and accounting, that's how things are based on professional guidelines. And so you did state that there was a policy that came up. So through you, Mr. President, I would just like to request a copy of the policy that was determined in order to make the decisions on who was eligible versus who was not. And seeing as this was passed last Wednesday, a week ago Wednesday, my guess would be that the policy would probably have a date but prior to that. So I would love to request a copy of that so that we could I just think, Mr. McCann, and to the administration, it's not necessarily like a gotcha moment. It's, I think the legislators on both sides of the aisle are kind of asking the question, what are the criteria that qualifies one person versus another? And certainly it's not a micromanaging issue from my standpoint. I would just like to know what those metrics are. And so if that's possible to make that policy available, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. President.
Mr. President, through you, if I could just say, if I said that there was a policy in place, I misspoke when I said that. There is not a written policy. This was done on a situational basis. But I would like to ask Dr. Mendoza if he could maybe take a moment and speak to the CDC guidelines that might be applicable and sort of help guiding our department heads on these decisions.
Yes, thank you, Deputy County Exec. And through you, Mr. President, I'm quoting from the CDC website as I read this. Individuals who are at increased risk are defined as household members, intimate partners, people who are providing care in a household without using recommended infection control, or individuals who have had close contact, i.e. less than 6 feet, for a prolonged period of time, which is typically defined in practice as 15 minutes or more.
Okay.
I'm sorry, one more thing. I didn't, Mr. President, through you to the administration, I didn't hear anything about extended time then. If we're reading guidelines from the CDC that has to do with risk, I'm not hearing the CDC guidelines regarding people or individuals for working longer hours. I heard the previous part of the conversation that the county attorney addressed, but it doesn't seem like what was just read, the CDC guidelines for hazard pay extends to individuals working longer hours. We've heard from other employees that have said that they feel that they are at risk. I guess to sum all this up, and then I'll be done, it would just be nice to have something written so that people could see and you know, if that's what it was based on what was said and recorded, that there was a policy, I just think that should be widely used and easily visible so that the rest of us can get on board. Thank you.
Legislator Felder.
Thank you, Legislator.
Mr.
Who's up? Felder, Legislator Felder?
Yes, very briefly. I would like to, first of all, echo the sentiments of some of my colleagues, particularly Legislator Flagler, and also Legislator Barnhart. One of the problems you have when you start handing out money is that you start looking, everybody thinks they deserve it. And the fact that we may believe that someone is not in a hazardous situation does not mean that they don't believe that. So part of the problem you have is creating a morale problem, creating an anxiety problem among the employees, because they feel like, well, these people got it, I didn't get it, I got to come to work every day too. And the question of being asymptomatic and still being able to transmit the virus is a very serious question that has to be asked, particularly people who are working in hazardous jobs like maintenance, having to clean up, you know, and people who actually still have to sit in a room around people. And I think that and this is not a criticism of the administration, because I don't believe it was done with malicious intent or anything, but I think it needs to be revisited and give a serious look at expanding the criteria and creating, I think, as the legislator Zell said, maybe some more uniform criteria for who gets hazard pay and who doesn't. Because one of the other things you're running into, there are people who have been laid off and we're not going to work, and were deemed non-essential or whatever, and actually in some cases are actually better off financially than the people who are being forced to go to work every day in the midst of this crisis. And I'm not saying the county should be laying people off, but what I'm saying to you is that we have to look at the real economic impact that this is having on people and the anxiety it's having on people and causing for families, and really take a good look at how we are determining who gets it and who doesn't, so we make sure that we're not creating a problem for ourselves in the future in terms of leaving people out who will now have a negative thought process toward their employers. And that's a real situation. And that doesn't mean we give it to people who don't deserve it, but it means we really take a good look at what we're doing to make sure that we're being thorough about this.
Mr. President?
Legislator Mafucci.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to explain my vote. I'm going to vote for this. This is a classic, no good deed goes unpunished. And I would like to thank the administration for acting. It's flexible, so we can make changes along the way. And I guess maybe there should be best practices for pandemics, but I don't know of one. And as we go through this, we should create a set of best practices so the next time a pandemic comes, we'll be better prepared, especially from the federal government. So once again, I would like to commend our administration for doing something. As a former superintendent of schools, I have a lot of experience and no good deed goes unpunished. So thank you. I will be voting for this. Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome. Any
Mr.
further
President?
discussion?
Yes, Mr. President, Legislator Flagler Mitchell.
You
I
got
want
it,
to thank the
legislator.
I want to thank the administration for acting as well. I just have one more question. I heard one of my colleagues talk about extended pay. And so, I just want to know, like, say for instance, if a staff person is working overtime, processing applications, due to like the COVID, due to everything that is going on, does that also fall under the extended hours, work hours, through you to the administration?
Through the president, yes, we were looking at the total number of hours that employees were working per week and making determinations of extended hours based on that. As you can imagine, the Department of Public Health at the onset of COVID worked extremely late and long hours, well into the evening and on weekends as well, with no days off.
Okay. Through you to the administration, thank you, and once again, thank you all for acting. And please take my recommendation and reevaluate to see if we can get those other 200 and something employees covered as well. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. President. Legislator Boyce.
Okay, Legislator Boyce, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I just want to weigh in here on this because I did ask many questions during the committee cycle that was brought to our attention with regards to hazard pay. And I do have concerns about, our employees that have to go to work. And I just want to be sure that the situations within the offices that they occupy at work are specifically following the CDC guideline. Specifically, are there any offices that people are doubled up or tripled up in offices? And do we need to revisit that for their safety? And I do want to, I want to commend the people that are working every day in our county and are being exposed possibly to COVID.
Through the president, at the onset of COVID, through County Executive Bellow's executive order, and then later through Governor Cuomo's executive order, we've reduced the number of staff coming into the buildings by 75%. The only staff who are in there on a regular basis are those that cannot work from home or those that have to see a client if they come into the building. Again, these are essential services, and the state has not given us any authority to shut down the Department of Social Services for obvious reasons of need, particularly for those vulnerable people who are impacted in the community by COVID. That I say all that to say that 75% reduction in staff has a significant impact on social distancing. So we are able to keep employees 6 feet or more away from each other during the workday.
Is that okay, Legislator Boyce?
Yes, thank you, and I appreciate that, Ms. Crossdale. I know that you have the utmost respect of all of us in the legislature for the job that you've done over the years, and I know that you have compassion for your employees, and I know that you will make every effort to make sure that those employees that feel that they should be considered for hazard pay will be looked at again.
Absolutely, through the president. It's an ongoing evaluation.
Anyone else for discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hazard pay carries. Next item.
Item number 35, referral 20-0172, accepting grant from New York State Board of Elections for New York State HAVA CARES Act grant program.
Move it, Mr. President.
By Legislator Delahanty, seconded by Legislator Hebert. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 36, referral 20-0173, amending resolution 138 of 2019 to authorize the submission of a substantial amendment to Monroe County's 2019 annual action plan for the Community Development Block Grant and Emergency Solutions Grant programs to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, and authorizing acceptance of Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act grant for the Community Development Block Grant and Emergency Solutions program.
Moved by Legislator Smith,
Second.
seconded by Legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion?
Yes, Mr.
Hearing
President.
none. Yes, Legislator
Mr.
Boyce.
President. Yes, Legislator Boyce. Yes, can you give us a brief overview through the president to the administration with regards to this?
Of our planning director. I'm sorry, again, through you, Mr. President, is Anna Liss or Chan Kwa, are either of you on the phone?
If not, tell them to give me 1 second.
Mr. President, if you could give us one moment, let us try to find them real quick.
All right. We're going to take a little in-place pause. Nobody leave.
Yes, Mr. President.
As far as this Zoom meeting goes, I think everybody did a great job, right? That's right. I'd like to thank everybody here in the legislature office. A lot of hard work to make this happen.
Sure it is.
And I didn't do any of it, so don't look at me. What's that backdrop, Legislator Felder?
It's High Falls.
Let's see. Oh, that's pretty.
High Falls.
Nice.
So you see the Kodak building up there behind? Yeah. It's Rochester.
One of the light bulbs on the K's went out this week. Said ODAC.
It might as well.
Mr. President, might I interject
Yes.
some good wishes here in this lull?
Go ahead, Legislator Bain.
I'd like to extend good wishes to all of our Monroe County college graduates who are not able to participate in the formal graduation during these weeks. I'd also like to congratulate all of the students who have been working so hard from home, in particular, my students who take their advanced placement exam tomorrow, and all students in the county who are working hard and preparing for and taking their advanced placement exams. I want you to know that I'm sure that every one of my colleagues in the legislature agrees that we're really proud of you.
Hear, hear.
Nicely said, nicely said.
Mr. President, this is Legislator. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get somebody to answer the question at this time, and I don't want to hold up the meeting. I'll leave that to your decision, sir.
Well, if they don't come back in a
Mr.
few
President, this
minutes,
is Jeff McCann. We should be ready in less than a minute here, sir. I apologize.
That's okay. Is that all right, Legislator Boyce?
Sure, as long as I'm not holding anybody up from anything else.
Well, we don't have anywhere to go anyways besides home, right?
Don't worry.
Legislator Baines, where are some of the colleges the girls are going to from Mercy, where my daughter graduated from last year?
Oh, we have some of the best 12th graders in the country in every way. I have 3 students going to Notre Dame. One of my students is just admitted to Georgetown. And we've got, many of the girls won't tell you where they're going because they don't want to make somebody feel bad. It's very different. Boys, when they do something well, they tell everybody. And I didn't understand why the girls wouldn't tell me where they were going. Well, they said, well, you know, somebody else might not have gotten in and I don't want to make them feel bad. And I said, well, I'm learning the difference between, because I have 7 brothers and sisters. So I'm learning the difference between boys and girls in my 3 years at OLM, Mr. President.
I know 3 or 4 Penn States.
Oh, they love Penn State. Yep.
They love Penn State, yeah.
Great school. Rolling admissions, so they learn their admission status early there, and it knocks out a lot of the anxiety. Thanks for asking.
Bonaventure?
Oh, we always have some kids go to Bonnie's.
Yeah, we got
beat
one
Olean
big
in the
Bonnie
winter.
fan here.
I love Bonnie's, man. East Rochester people all love Bonaventure. Sam Rosetta went there.
I'm having anxiety just waiting for this.
Thank you for your contribution, Legislator Wilt.
Thank you, Legislator Wilt.
Always happy.
Are we still streaming?
Oh my God.
Hello, this
Mr.
is
President.
Anna Liss.
Okay, Anna, thank you. You have the floor. Do you need the question
Hi,
repeated?
Yes, I do.
Legislator Boyce, would you like to repeat the question, please?
Yes, through the president, Anna, if you could give us an overview of exactly what we are doing in this legislative referral with regards to the block grants and emergency solutions with regards to the COVID aid relief.
Yes, so we were allocated a total of approximately 1.1 million in CDBG funds and approximately $600,000 in ESG funds through the Coronavirus CARES Act, which was signed into law on March 27th. And we are currently trying to determine how to spend these funds.
Okay, given
We're
the fact.
accustomed to receiving.
Go ahead. Through the president, then,
this is
so as a
Don Crum.
follow-up question, you're in developing a plan as to how to spend this funding. When would you come back to the legislature with regards to, if we do approve this, with what your plans are?
Hearing that
Can I
John Crum
jump-
is on the line. Yeah.
Yeah,
John,
it's
please
through
go
the
ahead.
president. If I could answer Legislator Boyce's questions a little bit, what we had submitted to
for the community development block funds, and tell me if I get into too much detail. As you well know, I sometimes go on and on. East Rochester, we're doing a blinker beacon installation is what we're trying for. And Fairport, Monroe Street, Hillsborough Street, Orchard Street, and Suffolk Street road resurfacing. That's what the Fairport Village has asked for. Henrietta asked for money for sanitary sewer installation. Hilton in the Village asked for Union Station backup generator. Parma, the Meeting House rehab and ADA parking. Sweden is Gary Drive extension. The Village of Webster is asking us to help with a Phillips Road sanitary sewer main. ABVI is asking for 211 purchase of services and license for crisis of hotline calls. Pathstone is asking for training and safety mechanism for staff and clients during and related to COVID-19. Lifespan is asking for help with emergency care provided to the elderly. Partners in Community Development is asking for help in training and resources to low mod income individuals who have lost their jobs during the pandemic. VOA is asking build 2 quarantine bedrooms and a bathroom at their shelter. Economic Development into the grant fund is going $208,000 to supplement the grants we currently do. And there are some administration costs that are allowed in this grant as well to operate it. Then we have the Emergency Solutions Grants Act, which is about $556,000. And that money will go to homeless prevention, rapid rehousing, shelter operations, and street outreach programs. And $55,000 of it goes to administrative costs to operate those expanded programs. I think I neglected to tell you that the community development block grant was $1,095,243. So if I haven't bored you too much, I can answer any questions on that.
So through the president, with regards
this is Anna
to
again. John, can I? Sorry,
Yes,
can I
yes, Anna.
ask Ken talk to address our understanding of the additional funding that's available through CDGB, as it's applicable to Monroe County? Via the CARES Act. Sorry, Chan.
I'm sorry, I think Chan is off the call. I'm not positive on that. She can correct me if I'm wrong, but it will be for any economic development loan grants that we currently are doing, and we do quite a few for different housing type projects as well as for some smaller business type projects. I'm sorry, I think I forgot to say through the president.
It's all right. You usually say it. You're pretty good, Mr. Crum. You're good.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Legislator Boyce, are you satisfied with that response?
Yes, but I have a couple of follow-up questions with regards to the Emergency Solution Program grant through the president. Are there any shelters or homeless programs that were being closed or being at all affected when the COVID-19 hit? And are these monies being able to have those programs being able to start up again, or to make sure that we're addressing the homeless and population?
Through the president, and the economic development and the community development portion, we don't actually go out and find out that information. People come to us, and what we've done is we're taking the original programs we have and adding more money so that when the people do come to us, we can supplement more things to help these shelters stay open and serve more people who might be in need right now.
Okay, thank you so much.
Through Through the president. Did that answer your question, Legislator Boyce?
Yes, thank you so much.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. 37.
Item number 37, referral 20-0174, confirming appointments to Climate Action Plan Advisory Committee.
Move it, Mr.
Moved by Legislator Turp, seconded by Legislator Wilcox. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President, it's Josh Barth.
Legislator Barrett.
Thank you. I just it's one of the traditional questions. I think I know the answer. Is this a matter of urgency because it's in response to the referral that got tabled at our last committee of the committee meeting?
It was a matter of urgency because we had 30 days, but we didn't make the 30 days because we couldn't do it at the last meeting, so it's a matter of urgency now.
Okay, so it has nothing to do with the past referral that came from the administration at the last committee of the whole is what it's called.
No.
Okay, thank you. That's why I know I was a matter of urgency.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion?
Mr. President, I have a comment. This is Legislator Hasman.
Okay, Legislator Hasman.
This evening, it is my honor, my privilege to vote yes for the members of this advisory committee. And I just want to, maybe provide a little guiding light for the committee and their important work. And that is to think about how healthcare policies and they relate to environmental policies. An example of that is how climate change increases the risk of diseases caused by vectors such as fleas, ticks, and mosquitoes. An example of that would be Lyme disease. We know that young children are often hit hardest by poor environmental conditions. They breathe more air than adults, making them more vulnerable to public hazards like air pollution that triggers asthma. We know that high heat events exacerbate chronic illnesses such as cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and mental illness. While everyone suffers from these events, we know that low-income communities and communities of color are hardest hit and continue to experience the negative health effects to a much larger extent. I know that these things I mentioned are big global problems, but that doesn't mean we can't explore solutions locally. I'm excited to see the work that comes out of this advisory committee, and I ask the members to be bold and make history, and I would just love to see Monroe County be a national leader in environmental health policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Mr. President?
Hearing none, I'm sorry, Legislator Baines.
Yeah, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank every young person, and I wasn't even in the legislature for the entirety of their many persistent appearances. And if any of them are watching this live or see this video, I want them to know that I will tell for the rest of my life to all the young people I meet that when young people speak with their profound idealism and moral authority, older people pay attention. And I ask every one of those young people to share their story with many other young people, because to me, this is a reflection of how legislation should be made. The young people in our community who came before us are going to live with the consequences of climate change much longer than, John Baines is going to live with it. So I just want to say this is a triumph on the part of a lot of people, the young people, but also this entire legislature. I'm super proud to vote yes tonight for this legislation.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Michael Udelson.
Yes, Legislator Udelson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to echo Legislator Baines' comments, but also add my appreciation to all the legislature for moving forward on this, and especially recognize and thank Legislator Wilcox and Legislator Turp for their work on making this come to fruition. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. There being no unfinished business, Legislator Brew.
Mr. President, this honorable body stands adjourned. The next meeting of the Monroe County Legislature is scheduled for Tuesday, June 9th, 2020 at 6 p.m.
Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Hope to see you live.
Bye-bye.